Eyes Wide Shut. That is the title of a famous 1999 movie starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. It's a movie that borders on the pornographic, but it's a movie that in my first semester as a humanities student in Pakistan, our English professor told us to watch. You guys have been reading too much literature from the margins. You need to know how power feels like. Therefore, I will make all of you watch Eyes Wide Shut. It was an uncomfortable experience, still is, as you can tell. Partly because I don't watch those kinds of movies, especially not with a whole bunch of colleagues, but also because Islam doesn't allow watching that kind of stuff. After the class, when I expressed my discomfort to my professor, she very genuinely and very sincerely told me, Hasan, if you want to stay in the humanities, actually she said, Hasan, I think you shouldn't stay in the humanities. Let me backtrack. I was actually a convert to the humanities. Today, I am a graduate student in history, but when I was applying for college as an undergrad, I didn't even know what the social sciences and liberal arts were. I entered a business school, and it was by pure accident that I discovered philosophy and fell in love with it. And I decided to transfer to the social sciences and liberal arts program after going through a lot of struggle trying to convince Desi parents who were not immigrants, so who were Desi, that I would not be out on the streets because humanities and liberal arts people do get jobs. Anyhow, coming in my first semester as a transfer student to the humanities and being told by no person less than my own professor that I should actually reconsider my decision was just the first instance where I realized that my passion for the liberal arts would at times be in tension with my faith, and the body was at the center of that tension. In my senior year, I took a course called Screening the Body, Race, Class and Nation in Visual Culture. It was a course which, like many other courses before it, talked about how everything that we knew about our bodies, about sexuality, was all socially constructed. And at the same time, it talked about how visual regimes of representation such as film, such as literature, such as the media, repressed our bodies and how we needed to pay attention to what the body said. And I took that seriously. And for the first time, I thought that I would do a final project where I could actually listen to my body and to listen to those moments of disjuncture and to listen to the discomfort that my body felt when watching something like Eyes Wide Shut and put those experiences in conversation with, on the one hand, Islamic ideas about the body, which I'd grown up with, and on the other hand, modern, secular, liberal academic scholarship about the body. But my professor didn't like that. And I couldn't do that project. And so I realized that one can only even talk about the body when what the body is saying is in line with certain liberal, secular, and a particular brand of feminist scholarship about the body. And if the body is saying something which is in line with other ideas, such as those of modesty and shame, then that has no place in academia. But there were other dilemmas other than the body. The most striking one of them being that in almost all my course readings, as well as almost all the faculty who were teaching me, were mostly non-Muslims, or Muslims who were not really practicing. Now, in a context where you're living in a country which is like 90% Muslim, that is a big deal. And not only were they not practicing Muslims, there was often a hostility towards religion and an equation of critical thinking with not being religious. What this meant for me and my small group of practicing Muslim friends was that we would be afraid to tell our professor that we needed a quick 5-minute break to go and offer Maghrib prayer. Because we were afraid that if our professor knew that we took religion seriously, then we would not be taken seriously. Coming to the UK to do my master's and then to the US to do a PhD in history has been an interesting experience, partly because, and this might be surprising, but I actually feel that some of those anxieties have kind of gone away. And this was partly to do with the great community that I found here. which is more open and more tolerant towards religious observance. At the same time, though, I feel an ironic twist to the earlier tensions that I experienced as a liberal arts student back in Pakistan. For here, in some of my classes, I feel that while there is a more sympathy towards being Muslim, there is still an antithetical attitude toward Islam. So while people here will be okay, and for example, I can offer prayer here in the 5 minute break in the middle of a 3 hour long seminar, which is how long graduate seminars are, just in case one of you decides to take it in their last year. Which is something I wouldn't never think about doing back in Pakistan. But despite that, to actually talk about the ideas that are coming from the Islamic intellectual tradition and to put them in conversation with the discussion at hand is still something which is very, very hard to do. And it requires a lot of courage, and it requires being able to sustain a lot of backlash in order to do that. And the challenge for me now is how can I do that without being arrogant or essentializing about Islam itself? How I can do that while remaining self-reflexive about what I'm saying about Islam, but at the same time not shying away from saying it, because that is one of the commitment we make when we join a university. The commitment we make is to be honest in terms of our own intellectual journey and to share our thoughts about a topic which is being discussed in class. And so I hope that by talking about some of these tensions out over here, I can create the space for discussing them in a more open and radical way in the classroom setting and amongst us. In other words, through this monologue, I hope that we can create the space for a more open-ended dialogue. I thank you all.